So now it is my pleasure to introduce our second keynote speaker of today's IB Beyond Concepts plenary session, Mr. Greg Parry. Greg has built an outstanding reputation as an educational leader and curriculum expert with extensive experience in Australia, the USA, Asia, and the Middle East. Greg is well recognized for his expertise in international school design and frequently speaks at global educational conference. And today he will be presenting his keynote on Vision to Reality, leading the launch of world-class IB schools. So please join me in welcoming Greg Parry.
Thank you very much, Tram. It's great to be able to speak to you today, and certainly, Maxine, I appreciated a lot of the things that you shared. I too am equally passionate about not the small things, but the big things about IB. The things that we really care about are the principles and the values and the philosophies of IB. So I think it's really important. And I urge all listeners and people watching today to really grab a hold of that it's important not to get bogged down in the detail, but to understand the true philosophies and values that are represented and underpinning the IB model. I was, of course, reflecting before we start today's presentation on how I first got into IB and how I first got a taste of the philosophy. And I think it was more than 20 years ago in Australia. I was principal of a school in Australia, and I was well recognised and successful. I had recently been awarded the Minister's Award for Excellence in School Leadership, and I was ready for that next step in my career to probably go on to be the principal of a large school in inner city Brisbane. But I thought, well, what else? What else could be different? And I attended an IB conference, and I got to understand how different education could truly be. And to be honest, my original passion for IB was prompted yesterday. Again, I was on LinkedIn and I saw a repost by Dr. Ollie, the Director General of IB, where he reposted a Forbes article. The article was, IB's approaches to learning are essential for the AI era. And the quotation from the article said, this global mindset is complemented by a problem-solving approach that is central to the IB philosophy. IB students are encouraged to ask questions, challenge assumptions, and seek solutions to real-world problems. And I think that really resonates with me because that's what I truly believe education can do. I feel really grateful that I've been able to live very much an IB philosophy for more than 20 years. I've been able to embrace a philosophy that didn't focus just on academic learning, and even though those things are important, but to embrace a lifestyle. In particular, I guess I'm very grateful that, and it's quite daunting to have reviewed this yesterday and reviewed this data, but in the last 20 years, we've now led 35 projects across 29 different countries of the world. And in order to do that, we've certainly had to embrace a lot of the IB philosophies, and that is to understand cultural difference and to understand the concept of international mindedness, about the fact that education is not just about getting good grades, even though that's really important. President Obama, a former president of the US, once said that when he goes into a crisis meeting, when he goes into a meeting and is there because he knows that he has a lot of pressure to solve a problem, he doesn't go into that meeting with answers. He goes into that meeting with questions. And he goes into that meeting with a team of people that he knows are likely to have better answers than he himself. And I think that's what one of the things that really I'm passionate about with IB is that it's very much about questions and finding out answers through problem-solving strategies, not just about remembering and recalling definitions and comprehension. So what do I do to understand more about our background? Well, basically, our company was launched about 15 years ago. And primarily what we do is we set up and manage institutions, educational institutions, schools and universities all around the world. We set up schools, provide turnkey solutions to create brand new schools. We manage and operate schools and now a university in Saudi Arabia, and we improve the quality of schools. So that ranges from everything from small teacher training development programs through to, as I said, managing universities and managing schools, setting and launching schools. And now we've recently set up an investment fund, a regulated investment fund in Malta. And certainly I think this has happened because also of having a broad vision about really wanting to have impact, which is what education in IB wants to do. It wants to help students achieve great grades, but it wants to make sure that we can have impact around the world. And it's exciting to be able to do that through the work that we now do internationally. Whenever you launch a new school, and that's certainly what I want to talk about today, it's natural for the first topic of conversation to be around the concept of vision and mission. But I want to remind you that it's more than just a throwaway line. You must have a compelling vision, but it must translate into reality. Now, it needs to be shaped by IB philosophy and what I would call the IB paradigm. But you need to achieve what we call vision and mission integrity, meaning that the vision and mission statement's not just something that's on the wall, but it's something that lives through real behaviours. Maxine's a very experienced educational leader, and you've got some great speakers coming up, I know, that are going to talk a lot about IB. Stephen and Simon Simon's going to talk about PYP. Gurpreet's going to talk about MYP, and Vishal's going to talk about DP. And I know for a fact that when they walk into classrooms, they know whether it's a good school or not just by what they observe and what they feel. They don't need to be in there for several days or hours. Within minutes, they can get a concept of whether that school truly has vision and mission integrity, whether it really does live the values that it espouses to be. How do you do that? Well, we also talk about the concept of signature experiences and how they shape culture. So I'm not sure the last time was you went into Starbucks or some of the large restaurant franchises, or even a fashion store or makeup or perfume or any product in the world. Hotels, they all have signature experiences. And these are experiences that are unique to that industry or that environment that shape their culture. So what I put to you is that if you have a clear vision and mission, and if it has integrity, you will have experiences within your school that represent in true, authentic ways that vision and mission. So if you say that you really care about kids, that you care about mindfulness and you care about well-being, then you're going to see teachers and managers of the school and leaders who literally live those behaviors in the way they interact, their interpersonal behaviors. You're going to see children saying hello and smiling and running around with happy smiles on their faces. You need to have a long-term alignment to these school values, and this is what we call signature experiences. And every workplace, business, or school has it, whether you like it or not, whether you try to do this or whether it's by accident. That's what's going to happen in your school. So I really ask you to embrace the paradigm of IB, understand the principles, but turn those vision and mission ideas into signature experiences that are going to live through the program. I'm often surprised as well by architects that contact me and say, hey, I just was contacted by an investor who wants us to build a school. And they say, well, look, who's the operator and what kind of curriculum it is? And the investor says, well, I don't know, just build me a school. You need to understand that we need to align school design with future-ready learning. And an IB school is not just a school. The school design must reflect IB school vision. Now, again, I'm not going to get into the details of IB because my colleagues are going to be going into that into the breakout sessions. But if IB is about collaborative learning and children learning to solve problems together, you can't have 45 children in a classroom lined up in rows. You need to have breakout spaces. You need to have collaborative spaces where children can face each other and solve problems together. School design needs to reflect this kind of vision and value. So certainly when we set up and launch new schools, we start with a vision and mission, but we translate that into spaces that are going to allow children to learn that way. PYP in particular, and if you know anything about Reggio Emilia and their approaches to early years learning, the physical environment is a teacher of learning. And so the signature experience is going to be created by that physical space. The other thing that I pose to you is that you need to think about what leadership looks like in a brand new IB school. If you're going to launch a new IB school, you need to think about what that high performance leadership team is going to look like. And I apologize in advance for being frank, but most academic leaders are not real good at startups. They're just not. Because most of us began as teachers and then we became principals or educational leaders. And we became really, really good at that educational craft. We understand Mazzano's high yield strategies. We understand Bloom's taxonomy. We understand critical thinking and literacy development. But we may not understand anything at all around business and financial leadership. It's just not the nature of the beast. I often say that I love food. I love beautiful food. I love to go to restaurants and enjoy wonderful food. And we've all attended schools, and people take the same, they might be passionate about education. But just because I've been to a lot of restaurants and I love beautiful food doesn't mean I can run a restaurant. And it's the same thing for schools. Sadly, there's this real division and conflict between educational leadership and business and financial leadership. I think our company's become quite successful because we've become a bridge between those two parts. We understand the business as well as understand the education side. But some educators feel like it's a dirty word to talk about money. The truth is, though, without money, there is no mission. And without mission, there is no money. So you've got to make sure that your educational leadership team for a school startup understands both. And I'll be honest with you, rarely does an educational leader with even 20, 30, 40 years of experience understand both. The other key skill that needs to be in your leadership team is the area of marketing and branding leadership. Educational leaders, principals, and heads of school are really good at being passionate about their craft, and they're great at an educational open day and speaking in front of parents about the school and vision and mission and educational processes. That's really, really important. But marketing and branding is about how to spend marketing money, how to create marketing and branding campaigns, how to generate leads, how to convert leads into enrollments. So this is another area that I really challenge you to think about when you're doing a school startup. That third area is not likely to be in the skill set of most educational leaders. So already we've got three key areas that somewhat are quite different, and very rarely can you find an educational leader who can do all of those. And the fourth one that I put in particular relation to international schools and IB is the concept of cultural intelligence. You need to understand how to navigate the unique nuances of different cultural environments. We worked in Palestine. We lived in China for 8 years. We now have projects in Africa, Italy, and France. I'm currently speaking to you from Malaysia. We have 12 significant contracts and projects in Saudi Arabia. All of those places represent very, very unique cultural environments. And I'm not going to call myself a cultural expert as such, but certainly what we've been able to do over time is be open-minded enough to navigate the challenges of those cultural differences. And IB very much requires that in the way it shapes our young people through their educational pathways, but leadership requires it as well. The other thing that's really essential when you launch a brand new school is, of course, to have well-organized and efficient systems. You need to be well-organized and operate the school really, really well. And it puts you that there's two purposes to create these good systems when you create a brand new school. First of all, of course, you need to have efficient management. You want to have a school that's well-oiled machine. It's well-organized, it's efficient, and there are no mistakes in daily operations. But also you need to meet accreditation demands. Often people approach me and they'll say, hey, Greg, I've been operating this school for 10 years, 20 years, and we would like to get international accreditation. Can you help us get it? And they think what that means is, can you help us create the paperwork? Can you help us pay the money? And can you help us get that stamp on the wall for accreditation? That's not how it works. What accreditation is, and particularly for international baccalaureate, is they say to you, this is the standard. This is the ways you operate a school really, really well. This is what good governance looks like. And in about 2 or 3 years' time, we're going to come and visit you, and we want to observe that. We want you to show us that you have those systems in place and you really do operate in an effective and efficient manner. So you need to get it started right from the start. When you create a brand new school, you set those systems up really, really well at the beginning and you operate them well. And I'm talking about governance structures. I'm talking about committees. I'm talking about, even with committees, recording minutes in an appropriate manner, because when an IB visitor says to you, hey, you say that you focus on maximizing literacy and teaching and learning outcomes for kids, but I've looked at the minutes of your meetings and in all of your middle management meetings, and not once do you mention academic areas of focus or academic achievement. So you need to be a well-organized system and have efficient systems, but understand that it's about running a good school and then showing the IB and other accreditation systems what that looks like so they can see it and observe it. Accreditation observes. It doesn't create quality as such on its own. The other thing I challenge you to think about is the concept of identity and creating a unique school identity. Well, first of all, if you're choosing to be an IB school, you're already unique. You're not necessarily British, you're not necessarily American or Australian, in particular, you're going to be IB. But what kind of IB school are you going to be? You need to differentiate yourself in a competitive market. The branding, the marketing, the reputation building needs to have that unique voice. Now, I've already mentioned the concept of signature experiences. You need to engage students, parents, and community into what that unique voice is going to be. We're currently working on a very unique project in Boston in the US at the moment, which is a sports academy. It will be an American international baccalaureate school, but also it will be a sports academy. It will be a school that focuses directly on sport. So what I put to you is that you're going to be an IB school, but so what? What kind of IB school are you going to be? Because you can't just adopt IB paradigm and philosophies on their own without having that unique space and identity in the community. I really challenge you to think about that a little bit. The other thing that's on the tip of our tongue at the moment, and everyone's talking about it, is the integration of technology and innovation. I've said this many times before, and I'll repeat it again, that COVID didn't change education. COVID accelerated things that were already on their way. It accelerated changes that were already underway, but we were too afraid to make those changes. Education technology is reshaping the learning experiences. We're using AI, adaptive learning, and virtual tools every day. Just like Maxine, I'm using ChatGPT and AI all day, every day. But I'm using it as a tool. It's a tool just like a pencil or a piece of paper or my phone. It's a tool that's potentially going to accelerate my learning. It enhances traditional teaching. We lead schools that are particularly innovative. We lead schools that are very, very different. But what I put to you is that we're also healthy cynics about new technologies and even about AI. I challenge you to ask yourself the following question every time you're introduced to a new piece of technology. Will this piece of technology, tool, AI, or whatever it is, improve or accelerate academic achievement for the students in my school? And if it won't, it has no place in your school. And if it does, you need to find a way to embrace it and help teachers adopt it. I'm incredibly excited about AI, but I'm concerned about a couple of things. I'm concerned that many teachers will not necessarily get the support they need to adapt to AI. That concerns me. I'm also a little bit worried about ethics in AI, and I think we'll continue that debate and discussion as things develop out. But AI is here to stay, and the technology and innovations need to be an integral part of what you do. But please, please, please make sure that everything you do accelerates and improves outcomes for kids. And it's not just flashing lights, bells and whistles, just as a great marketing ploy to parents to show that you're fashionable and interesting. I've already mentioned the concept of cultural intelligence. And in a globalized school, you need to have that. You need to respect diverse cultural perspectives. There's been a lot of discussion in the last 5 years, especially about what kind of teachers we employ. The concept of native English speakers, which is a terrible term that is certainly outdated now. We have to understand that our schools need to be diverse in gender, in culture, in skill set, in a range of different ways. Because to be truly international, that's what we need to embrace. We need to collaborate between foreign and local experts as well. We need to be really cautious in international schools about the potential tensions that can foster between local and expatriates as well. Whether you're launching a new school into somewhere like Indonesia or Saudi Arabia or Malaysia or wherever it might be, you need to make sure there's no concept of us or them, but there's an engagement and a celebration of difference between local culture and heritage and embracing and fostering and supporting it and loving it and celebrating it, with the concept of expatriates and foreigners joining in that international space. The way IB was first described to me as an international schools 20 years ago, I still embrace, and that is that when students walk in the door of an IB school, it's like walking into a glass globe, like a brand new fresh ecosystem. Outside is Vietnam, Saudi Arabia, Malaysia, whatever it might be, but inside that glass dome is an international world that embraces difference. It embraces a totally different and unique way of thinking. It believes in the impact it can have in the world. And that's what you want to create and foster with that cultural intelligence and that engagement and appreciation of diversity. Again, what we do as a company is we set up and operate schools. We provide turnkey solutions, and it's really complicated. We've actually estimated that from constructing a school to day one, the management of a journey of about 2,000 steps. So often people will say, well, hey, how do I set up a new school? Or what are the steps required? Well, there's about 2,000 of them. So we've got Gantt charts and we've got complicated processes that we use to follow all of those steps, from concept to reality, from the market research and feasibility study where you identify what kind of school it should be, the financial modeling and the business plan, through to designing the school, constructing the school, and all areas of scope to set up and operate the school, and then management. But I put to you that it's something that needs to be very, very carefully planned and well thought out, because it's a complex and comprehensive process that needs to be carefully tracked along the way, requiring a broad team with a whole range of skill sets. So you shouldn't miss anything at all. Make sure that when the school opens, teachers walk in with, yeah, sure, they might be opening boxes and it might be a fairly wobbly first few weeks while you get started in that new exciting endeavor, but you need to be well organized and focused because you've thought of everything that's required in that school startup. The other thing I put to you is that you need to sustain innovation beyond year one. You need to embed a culture of continuous improvement, and your leadership must reflect IB principles. One of the things that I often am frustrated about with educational leaders, and I'll be honest, I'm really tough on educational leadership. Principals and head of schools should have the most pressure of all because they're the ones that are going to make a difference. But we're telling our kids to be contrarian. We're telling our kids to think outside the box. We're telling our kids that they should find alternative answers. But, you know, if Rip Van Winkle woke up tomorrow, there'd be two things that we know he would notice haven't changed: churches and schools. So as leaders, we need to be brave. We're telling our kids to be brave. We're telling our kids to be contrarian and think outside the box and be critical thinkers. But as educational leaders, we're not. So we need to make sure that we as leaders embrace IB principles as well. And we think critically. We are international minded. We push boundaries. We're contrarian. And we make sure that we are what we want our kids to be in the next generation, to have impact in the world. So to sum up, I guess the key message I hope that you get from what I've shared today is certainly you need to have a clear vision and mission, and it needs to reflect the paradigm and way of thinking about IB. IB has some wonderful characteristics that I know my colleagues are going to share and talk about in the next hour or so, about PYP and MYP and DP and how it works and all the really unique and interesting processes that can be used to make sure students maximize outcomes in those spaces. But as a leader, you need to embrace a vision and mission that has integrity, that truly lives out what you say it's going to be. And I challenge you to do that through creating signature experiences. Experiences that are going to truly reflect what you say you're going to be. Because you're only going to be successful as an IB school if you do that. The last point I want to make is I want to reflect on the fact that schools are often profit or non-profit, and there's this tension sometimes about how to manage that. It shouldn't matter. The outcome of a great school is students who make a difference. The outcome of a great school is students who have impact in the world. They're academically smart, they get good grades, but they do something with it. They operationalize it and make a difference. And certainly that's what an IB school is going to do for you. So if you're about to embark on this journey and you're excited about it, you should be. Like Maxine said, it's my favorite curriculum. We do British schools, American schools, Australian schools. Don't tell anyone, but IB is my favorite. It really is going to make more of a difference in the world. I mean, look at the world right now and the challenges we're facing politically and otherwise. Kids that graduate from an IB curriculum and an IB school are going to be the ones that can truly make a difference into the future. And I really ask you to grab a hold of that and think about that as you go forward. So thanks very much. And I certainly would love to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you so much, Greg, for that inspiring session. And we can already see some questions being asked to you. I don't know if you can see the chat box or not, but maybe.
Yes, I can now. Yeah.
Yeah. So there is a question regarding the culture of thinking and the strategies that work well for you.
I'm flicking through, but if you can help me point to them, Tram, that might be helpful. The ones that you think are.
So the one by Saron. Or maybe I can just read it out loud. I think that's
sure.
maybe better.
Thank you. That'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah. So I would try to tie it two questions together due to the shortest of time. So one participant say that thank you for the awesome insight, especially on how fostering a culture of thinking is key in international school context. Would you share the strategies that work well for you, especially that tie to the concept of IM? I think IM is in international mindedness.
Sure. Look, I think, as you've noticed, I'm very passionate about the concept of vision and mission integrity and tying that to behaviors. So let's say, for example, let's say a school is focused directly on the culture of thinking, of children thinking critically and thinking more deeply and extending their thinking in unique ways. So what you need to do is make sure that you create guiding questions in all of your discussions and all of your meetings that make sure that we always pull our attention back to that. So let's say you're making a decision about spending money. It's a budget item. You know, you've got an allocation of $50,000 and you need to spend it and allocate it to resources. I put to you the guiding question: will expenditure of this budget item improve or not improve the culture of thinking in our school? Will it accelerate outcomes for kids? So use of these guiding questions as a structure to our conversations and discussions, make sure that it pulls our attention back to what's most important. I was fortunate to participate in a project in Australia where we won a National Literacy Award. Now, I'm not going to take responsibility for it myself, but I was the deputy principal at that time, and we won the National Literacy Award. And in all of our conversations, we said, will this activity, teaching and learning strategy, project or budget item improve literacy for kids in our school? And that's how we made guiding decisions. And we went through the minutes of our meetings and we said, how much are we talking about literacy? How much are we talking about cultural thinking? So this is a way to guide our strategies and make sure that we're focused on the right things.
Thank you, Greg. I think we have time for one final question. So this is pertaining to the use of AI again. Let me read the question. So Mandira asks for your opinion whether the rapid advancement in AI going to make schools redundant, and will there be a trend that the students will prefer homeschooled rather than being in a brick and mortar schools?
Look, I don't think it's going to make schools redundant, but schools are going to look different. I mean, there was a period of time when I know my teacher said to me, probably back in grade 4, you're not going to be able to carry your calculator around every day. You're not going to be able to have your calculator to do mathematics. But the truth is, I do now. I carry my calculator around in my telephone. So I think schools are going to look different. So I think we need to be challenged to think about concepts of hybrid learning, where secondary students in particular are only going to attend school for part of the day, and the other time they're going to be at home doing flipped learning. Dr. Ollie from IB certainly made comment on LinkedIn just the other day that AI is a tool, but you can't replicate the concept of EQ, emotional intelligence, the ability for students to interact with each other and solve problems together. So I think what will happen is AI will do some things better than teachers currently can. And that might be scary to some teachers, but it does. AI does some things better than teachers already do. But what it will hopefully allow us to do is it'll give us greater space to do some of the other things even better, such as the areas of emotional intelligence, solving problems together, hands-on and practical applications of learning as well. The facts are, exams never solved it for teachers anyway. You ask a good teacher, when an exam occurs for a teacher, teachers are rarely surprised by the outcome of an exam because they're monitoring that student along the way. So it's the same thing with AI. Good teachers are already monitoring processes, asking questions, answering questions along the way. So there's rarely a surprise at the end in a piece of assessment. So although students might be able to produce high quality work in AI short term, the facts are we always know what a student can and can't do because of our ability to monitor and a student's progress along the way.